Snake had his hands splattered with blood. Several minutes passed and Snake did not move. And just then, a fly that was wandering around the area approached him. Several flies began to fly in circles around Snake's corpse. The spell to resurrect was so powerful that Snake had lost his life trying to deactivate it. Now on the ground there was a crater, and in the middle was the body of Camus Morgue and the corpse of Snake. The eyes of Camus Morgue, who was bleeding from her mouth, were filled with exhaustion. She did not know how much time had passed, and her burned body did not move. She was lying on the floor, and the floor was full of blood. She better than anyone knew that this was the price one had to pay for using a forbidden spell to bring back the dead. They were on the 666th floor of the Hall of Darkness, and the only thing that could be seen from below was a small light. So no one was going to come to this space hidden deep within the Hall of Darkness. She accepted that she was going to die in this place, and although her master, who had died in her place, would find this ridiculous, she had already tried everything and no longer had the will to live. She began to remember the last time she had seen Vikar in the forest. Our boy turned his back on her and prepared to draw his sword. If there was something she regretted, it was that in the end she never got to meet him. She closed her eyes, thinking that maybe by dying she would finally be able to meet Vikar. Someone mentioned that she seemed to want to live. Upon hearing this, with the little strength she had left, with an exhausted gaze, Camus Morgue opened her eyes and couldn't help but feel somewhat confused. Her attention was fixed on Snake's corpse lying beside her in a tired tone. She couldn't help but wonder why she was hearing a voice, and whether she might be hallucinating. The voice began to sound again, revealing that it wasn't a hallucination. They had come here after feeling her longing. Camus Morgue, who didn't even have the strength to move, asked if they were a demon like the ones she read about in books. The voice confirmed her theory. Realizing that she seemed to know about demons, the demon decided to get to the point. They could save her with their power, asking if she wanted to make a contract with them. Camus Morgue, who was losing more and more blood, refused since she had no attachment to life. Upon hearing this, the demon became curious and asked what it was that she desired. Camus Morgue began to think in silence, not knowing what to say. The demon's attention fixed on the shattered ground, and they soon realized that Camus Morgue had tried to use the magic circle to resurrect someone. The demon asked if there was a dead person she wanted to see. A demonic smile appeared, and the demon revealed that this was her specialization, since after all she was the demon of indulgence and corruption named Ser. She decided to help Camus Morgue meet the person she wanted to bring back to life, asking her to make a contract with her. The eyes of Camus Morgue slowly began to open and shine with a light of hope. She began to observe the demon and ponder in silence. She remembered Snake's words before dying. He had pushed her into the water, saying that he hoped she could reunite with her loved one. Camus Morgue closed her eyes, not knowing what to do with the little strength she had left. She accepted and decided to make a contract with the demon. Upon hearing this, an excited smile spread across the demon's face. Camus Morgue opened her eyes, which began to shine with determination. She had thought that she had tried everything, but if there was still a path left, she couldn't give up. It was night, and the moon was shining high in the sky, and on the outskirts of the city stood the castle of the Morgue family. Camus arrived at the castle, and seeing that she had returned, the guards decided to help her enter. With a worried gaze, Adolphe, who was panting heavily, and several guards approached the entrance of the castle. Camus Morgue, who had recovered from her wounds, entered the castle and began to walk down the hallway. Adolphe's attention was fixed on her, and upon seeing that she had returned, he froze and asked if she knew how worried he had been about her. Now Camus's hair color had changed. With a sad gaze, she began to look at the ground, not knowing what to say. Adolphe's gaze was fixed on her hair, and his eyes widened in confusion. He wanted to know what had happened to her hair, and what she had been doing during the last 10 days, believing that that bastard Snake must be behind it all. With a cold expression, Camus Morgie walked past her uncle without saying a single word. Seeing this, Adolph's eyes widened in confusion and his jaw dropped in surprise. Camus Morgue clenched her fists, began to walk away from her uncle, and with a sincere expression apologized, saying that she was tired. Adolph and the guards turned around and their attention focused on her. Everyone was somewhat surprised, not knowing what was happening. The demon, Sayer, manifested herself and couldn't help but smile and feel pity, asking if it was okay to ignore an uncle she hadn't seen in a long time. Camus Morgue's eyes began to shine with determination. With a furious gaze, she gave the order to the demon to shut up. She began to walk down the hallway, which had a beautiful ceiling lamp. She made it clear that if the demon did not demonstrate her usefulness, she was going to break their contract. The demon decided to show her powers. That was how her contract with Sayer began. The demon, Sayer, was going to grant a portion of her power to Camus Morgie and was going to help her reunite with Vikar van Baskerville as payment. Camus Morgie would have to grant Sayer full control of her body for 1 hour each day, remaining completely unconscious during this period. Additionally, Camus Morgue was forbidden from saying anything related to Sayer and demons. After that day, she met with the demon Sayer in the forest, where she extended her hand and began using her powers, making evil energy emerge. There were 2 abilities that Camus Morgie obtained from Sayer. Camus Morgie, who was holding a lock of hair, opened her palm and let it fall to the ground. Then she extended her hands and, using her powers, began to revive a dead person. Sayer crossed his arms and with a smile began to watch in silence. Thanks to the power of the demon, she had the ability to find what she wanted and the ability to revive a corpse. Several seconds later, she managed to successfully revive someone who had red hair. Camus Morgue clasped her hands and her eyes filled with tears and astonishment. She had revived Rose without losing a second. She threw herself and gave her a hug. Camus Morgue had been able to find her cousin who had died at the hands of the barbarians. After a few days, they returned to the Hall of Darkness. Using some candles and drawing a magic circle on the ground, Sayer began to fly and control several spirits. Her eyes widened in confusion and surprise since it was the first time that she experienced something like that, revealing that she could not feel at all Vikar's soul whom Camus Morgie was looking for. Camus Morgue, who was standing behind, began to gaze toward the ground. Then her eyes began to shine with determination since she could not give up. During the day, she used clothes training as an excuse to take care of Rose, and during the night, she moved around to search for Vikar. Her mother and uncle showed no objection and did not inquire much into the matter either. She entered her room and using a pen began to draw a magic circle. Over time, she began to grow distant from her mother, her uncle, and the people of the clan since she had no time to think about them. To find Vikar, she had no time to think about anything else. One day while she was in the Hall of Darkness, someone started laughing. Her eyes filled with surprise and confusion. Behind her stood someone wearing an elegant suit. With a furious gaze, she turned around and asked how they had gotten in here. It was a demon who began to smile and said that his business was not with her. Dantelion's eyes began to shine with evil and a smile spread across his face, revealing his true form. He extended his hand and with a penetrating gaze gave the order to Camus Morgue to bring Sayer, and that is how after that day Rose disappeared. While Sayer's eyes were shining with evil, with a smile she explained to Camus Morgue that her ally, the 9th Corpse, said he needed a servant, and had taken Rose, revealing that once this guy disappeared, it was hard to find him again. Dantelion, an ally of Sayer and a demon, took Rose and disappeared. Camus Morgie became furious, extended her hand, and asked how Sayer had let Dantelion take her cousin. Sayer extended her hands, turned to her, and with a smile explained that Rose was dead. She could fix her again, so she asked Camus Morgie not to get angry. The eyes of Camus Morgie began to shine with rage. She clenched her fist, and it didn't take long for her to realize that deep down, she was a demon. And the day she went looking for Rose, she reached the dormitories of the orphanage, where Vikar had defeated the demon Dantelion. It was night and the building was cut in half. When she revived Rose, someone appeared. Camus Morg's eyes widened with curiosity, and she turned around. It was Vikar. With a piercing gaze, our boy drew his bow and prepared to launch a mana arrow. Back in the present, the wind began to blow, moving strands of Camus Morg's hair. Our boy mentioned that some time had passed. Upon seeing Vikar, she fell to her knees on the ground and her eyes filled with tears and sadness. Vikar had taken off his mask, and she began to observe our boy through the gap in the wall of skeletons in silence. With a cheerful expression and a smile, Vikar realized that she had changed a lot since the last time he saw her. Seeing that Vikar was alive, Camus Morgu's eyes widened in surprise, and she couldn't help but cry and was about to let out all the things she wanted to ask him. Vikar moved away from the wall of skeletons and began to walk toward her. Camus Morg began to gaze at the ground without knowing why Vikar was saying things so calmly when so much time had passed since they last saw each other, nor why he hadn't come looking for her if he was alive. Vikar didn't know how hard it had been for her, nor how much she had fought to be able to see him again. While our boy was getting closer to her, Camus Morg couldn't help but freeze and didn't say a single word. Vikar stopped in front of her, realizing that she had made a contract with a demon. He wanted to know what had happened. She didn't say a single word, since she wanted Vikar to see her as a cool woman in her final moments, even without asking. She could feel that the depth of Vikar's eyes had never looked so deep before. He had become someone so handsome, unlike her, who had ruined everything. Vikar's eyes filled with confusion. With a surprised expression, he called Camus Morgu's attention. She lifted her head and began to observe our boy in silence. Her time was going to end soon, and when that happened, Vikar would have to fight against Ser. The last thing Camus Morg could do for Vikar was not let him fight alone again. But now that she had been able to see him again, from the bottom of her heart, she thanked our boy for having recognized and found her. Upon hearing this, Vikar's eyes widened in fear and confusion. A magic circle appeared beneath Camus Morgi, and then spikes began to emerge from it. With eyes full of tears and happiness, she gave Vikar 100 points out of 100. The spikes shot toward her. Camus Morg closed her eyes and with a smile admitted that she was happy. At that moment, a pool of blood appeared on the ground, and splashes of blood fell on Camus Morgu's face, making her eyes fill with surprise, leaving her in shock. Just before the spikes could hurt her, Vikar gave her a hug, taking the spikes directly. With a confused and fearful gaze, she asked why Vikar had done this. The spikes had pierced Vikar's back with a calm tone. He explained that he understood that she couldn't tell him because of the contract she had with the demon. Vikar hugged her tightly since she hadn't managed to land any critical blow when they fought. Camus Morgi began to cry without knowing why he was doing this again. Vikar began to gaze at the ground, saying that if ending her life had been a way of telling him that she couldn't talk about it, then she shouldn't worry about him. He asked her to let him take care of it. Vikar's eyes began to shine with hatred, as he was never going to lose against a demon. The demon Sayer took control of Camus Morgu's body, and while her eyes were shining, a smile spread across her face. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,